Hello, and welcome everybody to SDVoE Live. I'm your host, Justin Kennington, and this is TV for Pro AV. We have a very interesting show for you today. This episode is called How Special Is That? And you see our little capital letters there. It's an initialism. We're going to be talking about houses of worship today. And we're going to try and get to the heart of the matter of, is a sanctuary, a house of worship, is that the same thing as a big lecture hall from an AV perspective? Or are there special considerations that you need to understand? And in either case, is this something that you should be doing in your business as an integrator, as a system designer? Should you be serving this market? We're going to look at that today with our guest, Matt Scott, an old friend of mine. Works, of course, with the guys at AV Nation TV and also with Omega Audio Video, where he does many successful installations in houses of worship. So I hope he's got some insight for us today, and we're looking forward to that. We'll be showing you a little bit of a clip of a new SDVoE Academy video about how SDVoE can be applied in the house of worship application. So watch for that, and you can click below in the resources section later to see the whole video. After the show, we're going to have our after show. Can you think of how we came up with that name? It's because it's after the show. That's where we'll all loosen our proverbial ties a little bit and sit down with me, my co-host Matt Dodd, and our special guest Matt Scott and take on your questions. So pay attention to the chat box down there below my feet. You can chat with the other audience members of the show and ask us questions for later. You can also reach us on Twitter at hashtag SDVoE Live, and we'll be seeing your tweets and questions live throughout the show, so bring those in to us. And I also want to mention, just over my head this way, this QR code is a new feature. If you're watching us on your PC and you'd like to kick back from your desk, put your feet up, and still participate in the chat, shoot your phone at that QR code, and it will take you straight to log in with your SDVoE Academy account and let you chat on your phone while you watch on the big screen in front of you. So enjoy that. Without further ado, we have a quick quiz question coming up for you, and then we'll go see Matt in the classroom.
Hello everybody, it's me, Matt. How are you? Are you well? We're well, we're all well and healthy over here. Got a great show for you lined up today. Justin's pretty much said it all, so I'm not going to press on about this because the video that we're going to show you is a new video on Academy. This is just a snippet, a short piece, as Justin said. You can get down into the resource section and head into the main Academy site to see the full video. It's a good video, and it's very interesting that in that we're doing this show, that we're starting to explore how houses of worship now have changed so much when it comes to the use of AV technology. So with no further ado, enjoy, and we'll see you shortly. We often think of our places of worship as being traditional buildings like this church. However, as the younger churchgoers are perhaps more familiar with, our houses of worship have evolved to include more modern buildings which support large audiences through the use of technology. People across multiple areas of the building want to experience a service in real time, and the service doesn't just stop at the delivery by the priest or the vicar. Many places of worship encourage congregation interaction through music and song. So, let's take a look at how SDVoE technology is supporting this global transition to the modern church. Modern church environments can range from a smaller room, which resembles a meeting room, to large arenas, which look more like an auditorium than a church we would normally think about. A large stage with multiple displays, musicians playing live music instead of a single pipe organ playing to the room. A multi-screen setup is now the most common projection use in churches, and this is where SDVoE can provide massive benefits to this video distribution. Let's begin by looking at a typical AV layout used within a church. The first screen added to most auditoriums is actually at the rear to act as a teleprompter for the worship team to read the sermon and indeed the lyrics to the music played. It's entirely possible that projectors are used to adapt to large arenas, and with SDVoE technology now being integrated to some projectors, the application benefits are immediately available without the need to add additional hardware or infrastructure. Smaller screens can also be placed in various locations. On the side of the stage, screens can hang like digital artwork, and small screens can be placed around a large backdrop screen to add supporting images. Alternatively, if space is tight, multi-view can be used, and we'll discuss that shortly. Large screens can even be hung or placed in the entrance hall or entrance location to establish the feel before the audience gets into the room. And even circular and other shaped screens can also draw visual interest. The SDVoE multi-view application allows a single projector to display multiple feeds to a display without any extra hardware being added to the system. Now, this represents a huge cost saving because traditionally multi-view processors are very expensive, and adding more projectors and screens is not only financially prohibitive, probably not viable with the room size you have available. You can learn more about SDVoE Multiview by clicking this link. During his message, the pastor may like to refer to a specific scripture multiple times. Multiview layouts can be designed for specific applications such as this. For example, the scripture can be placed on smaller multi-view sections and kept for the entire sermon, while the main central section of the display shows the sermon notes or imagery which the pastor is using to support his message. Using mood pictures and graphics like this, the feel of the drama can be set even before the pastor walks on stage, and during worship. Additional multi-view displays can support the song being played without impacting the song lyrics being displayed. Now, this multi-view application allows smaller churches also to offer the same immersive experience with a single screen that would usually only be found in larger arenas with multiple displays. Clifford, you nearly got the answer right. Try again, brother. Hello.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Matt. Great video.
Oh, thank you.
Good,
a shortened version. Go check out the real version, the real one, as if that wasn't real. Go and check out the full version in the Academy from the Resource link just down here. Yeah, very excited to see you, of course, Justin. Are you well over your side of the building?
Yeah, doing great over in this side of the building, the same building that we're in here together.
Of course.
Same climate on this side as that side, obviously.
And what we've been able to do quite. Sorry, go on. Interesting
topic this week. I'd never given a lot of thought to the systems that go into House of Worship before, and all of the things that they're doing. You know, I know the trends towards bands and live music and interacting with the audience, but the way that AV has been integrated into all this for more than sound reinforcement was news to me, and I thought it was very interesting stuff.
Speaking of which, I mean the research that we've been the research that we've been doing for this show, and obviously for the video that we've just made, it's really opened my eyes. There's been a huge amount of stuff that I thought, wow. That's why we kicked that video off. That with we often think. And I apologise to people if people don't generally think of a church like that. But when you think of church as being an old church traditional building, no, there's some of the buildings that are being used. I mean, they are like, well, as we'll see, they are like full auditoriums. It's incredible the technology that's been embraced. First news piece, Justin. What brought you to this?
Well, kind of what you were talking about. Our traditional understanding of these buildings. I've been familiar, of course, with the large-scale megachurch, the kind of facility that is a broadcast studio, effectively, and does broadcast their sermons nationwide or globally. Of course, those have existed for some time, but now, in the past year, since COVID has hit, and people aren't comfortable sitting in chairs or pews or in close proximity with one another has come along. We've seen all of the medium and smaller churches and others want to get their message out, and there's been a big interest in live streaming. And that I thought was interesting from their perspective, because it's what we've been up to, right, Matt? You know, we've taken some of our live events and turned them into this TV show, right, out of necessity. But it's cool to see all of the different markets and all the different ways that this technology of live streaming can be used.
Hey, speaking of which, just while we're talking about live and new technology, guys, if you haven't done already, click on the full screen button. Make us go full screen. Go on, do it now. And look at Justin and I look how handsome we are. You didn't realise that, did you? Look, you can see it all going on. I probably need to shed a few pounds. And as Justin said, click the little QR button, and you don't need to be out the way of chat. You can chat on your phone while you're watching this full screen. Honestly, everyone's moving forward. This is an interesting news topic. This blew me away, actually. You know, when you saw, I mean, that install they did with the LED panels, LED screens. But the real takeaway here, and I suppose this doesn't just stop at houses of worship, but it's great that we're seeing this embraced in an auditorium environment where space is a premium. And I say space is a premium. There isn't the space to put full screens or projection systems in, certainly in the case study they used here. And you should check this out. It's fantastic, because the use of LED paneling, as we alluded to in the video piece there, in the education piece, means that it works for budget as well. So that's, you know, a church, you know, they can spend on so many LED screens, they can make the screen so big, and then when they can afford to do it again, they can add more LED screens and they can make the screen bigger without the need to have to take, you know, old kit away and add to it. And the visuals, the brightness, the nits. You impressed about that? The nits.
That word again. Very good. Very good.
There you go. Incredible. Just worth checking out. I was blown away by this. Well done,
and
Dave.
I think you just touched on something at the beginning of this. This article was about LED walls versus projection for churches in particular, but this is a much bigger topic, right? This is a trend in the industry of moving towards these direct view micro LEDs. I mean, what's happened fundamentally is we've invented a display technology that's just once again about printing smaller and smaller transistors, and now we get a Moore's law effect, right? These things get smaller, they become more dense, and price falls. And I think that's a super interesting future for our industry. We're going to be able to have more video content, more places, in more shapes. We're going to move away not only from 16 by 9, but move away, as you touched on in the video, move away from rectangles. Yep. Right? Who said a video screen has to be 16 by 9 rectangle? I really think, 10 years from now, we're gonna see so much more video content, so many more places, and it's because of the technology foundation that we've laid in the last few years, and that is readily accessible and even practical today.
I am getting myself ready for circular screens. As you can see, you're doing a pretty decent job over there as well. I think we're getting into dad shape. Perfect. Ready for round circular screens. Don't be offended by that. It was born out of love. No. I'm looking forward to the banter that's going to come from the guys out there. Hey everybody! It's great to see you again. 14,000 viewers and going up. Fantastic. So keep them coming in. Justin, who on earth is this?
It's Matt D. Scott. It says right there, Matt D.
Oh yeah,
Scott.
Good, great name. Great name.
He's an old friend. He's a Canadian, but that just means he's extra polite, which we appreciate on this show. And works for Omega Audio Video, right, where he does residential installs, but also has a lot of experience. He told me over 1,000 churches that he's been involved in the installation of their AV system in the past 20 years. So wow. I think he's the guy to talk about. Why don't we bring him in? Okay, let's do that. Hello, Matty. Great to see you.
Matty, wow. Thanks, Mr. Dodd.
Listen, before we start anything,
how are you?
I've got a story to tell you about a church install when I was an integrator. This is a good story. Okay. It was a modern church, and it was one of these superstructure things where to make the auditorium, the congregation area, as big as possible with no pillars, no supporting pillars. They suspended the whole of this concrete ceiling, and it was huge, massive concrete ceiling with this support structure. And of course, they had all of these acro prop things for weeks on end, supporting this thing. And they decided before they took the acro props away that they thought it'd be a good idea. It was in London, to get a second opinion on the survey, on the infrastructure by another structural engineer. The guy turned up and said, no easy way to put this, chaps. No easy way to put this, fellas. You take all those acrops away and the roof will fall down. And we'd all been in there. We'd all been pulling cables. It was a 100-volt line system. We were, oh my God. And these wonky, rusty things were holding up the ceiling. So, yeah, needless to say, not many people were going in there for sure. And they had to redesign and oh yeah. I would not have liked to have been the original engineer.
No, it's always fun when you see churches that occasionally try to questionably outsource their design.
Yeah.
And just like the construction side, you see it a lot in the tech side too, where they do things internally, or they're continually looking for a low bid that means they get to do things like buy a video wall twice, which is always fun. So, but thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Consider yourself had, sir. No, right, Justin. We always tend to be nice to our guests. I mean, we're going to be especially nice to Matt, of course.
I think we do our best. It's primarily the audience that I've observed you to abuse. So I think Matt will do just fine.
Yes, he will.
So.
He's a handsome
chap. So let's dive in right to the question that I was interested in at the beginning of the episode. Right? There's an easy way, I think, to look at a house of worship and its main sanctuary. There's an easy way to look at it as essentially a giant lecture hall. Right? Somebody stands up at the front. Yeah. They give a presentation to a big audience sitting in front of them, and maybe there's a screen behind them with some supporting imagery, some supporting text. Mm-hmm. How is one of these systems the same as any university lecture hall, and how is it different? Because I don't want to bias your answer, but I suspect that it is.
How many times are we going to say how, by the way, in this?
As many times as we possibly can.
We should.
Matt, why don't we hear from the guest? What do you say?
How?
Well, Justin, that's a really good question, and typically, almost every house of worship facility starts in a lecture hall configuration. It's about an individual at the front giving a presentation and an audience actively listening and participating. Where that changes and where that evolved recently, the last 10, 20 years, is you're seeing a big push to make that more dynamic. I love the image that you guys used at the start of your presentation, because it was that traditional synagogue church facility that has the towering ceilings, and there's a little spot way up front where somebody stands and nobody can see them from the back. Whereas as that's evolved, we now have these big auditoriums, and everything from your smaller 100-seat auditorium up to 20, 30,000 seat auditoriums. But you start to add in, you start at the again with that typical lecture atmosphere, but then very quickly you start adding IMAG, which is image magnification, to take that speaker and make them, again on a TV, on a overhead projector, on a video projector, on an LED wall, and do a center hang, do two side screens, and then you start adding lights and half the time now atmospheric effects. It really becomes or can become something, depending on the flavor of the church. It can become a full-blown show. Yeah. And not dissimilar from something at Disney, or that you'd see at in Las Vegas in one of the big stage shows, or even Broadway. The level of production that goes into a lot of houses of worship anymore rivals anything else out there. And the interesting side of it is that you have, as I said, everything from the top end stuff to even the smaller local community churches that are doing their best to keep up. So it really expands possibilities.
I'd imagine there needs to be
what
an
I'm
element.
hearing is
sorry,
on the,
carry on.
On the one hand, it starts out like a lecture hall, but then it morphs into a live event venue, right? You mentioned the image magnification, and I don't know where else I'm going with that, but it's like an interesting mix of those two elements, right? Which bring the challenges of how image magnification carries a strong latency requirement with it. I think that's interesting.
It really is something where it does become. Yeah, again, it all depends on the church. Last year we worked with a church where we were fighting them to put a projector in to show lyrics up at the front, so that when they were doing their music side of the service, the parishioners didn't have to open a book and follow along in a hymnal. And then at the same time, last year we dealt with a church who was looking at a triple wide LED wall, and we're talking well into six figures, if not into seven figures, for that wall. Looking at I think it was a 72-foot wall. Wow. That's a massive wall, even by commercial standards. So you have that whole gamut, and I love that you brought up the live streaming side of it, because live streaming is something that in houses of worship, it was typically done by churches that respectfully couldn't afford to go on to broadcast TV, whether it was local cable access or onto a regional partner or a national partner. And even those churches that were national, the streaming side was, it was an afterthought. And then about this time last year, very quickly, every single church was looking at ways in which they could stream.
Wow.
And that brought a whole different gamut, because you had everything from, I think the smallest church we dealt with was like 20 people who was trying to figure out how to do it with an iPhone, up to, we were working with a couple thousand member church that had all of this TV infrastructure for broadcast, but they could not get it condensed down into a manner, and their network wasn't sufficient to get to a point to where they could live stream that. And it's a very interesting market that's really right now.
Is there? I imagine there's got to be an element, an area of sensitivity around we saw the traditional sort of older style building, and you've got the iconography, and you've got the scale of the building to start with. But you can't just start throwing screens around the place and running cables everywhere. I mean, I imagine that in itself is going to present challenges, because those buildings also want to reap the benefits of this modern technology, but it needs to be presented in an older, more traditional building. What sort of challenges does that present?
A lot. And it's not, and I don't want the audio people to yell at me, but it's not that hard in a typical lecture hall to achieve quality audio from a PA standpoint. When you get into some of those traditional buildings, and especially some of the heritage buildings that are a couple hundred years old,
concrete everywhere,
it's incredibly challenging, not only just from an audio standpoint, but from a decor standpoint. And when you start working with a facility that's got woodwork that was carved 150 years ago by hand, they won't let you come and put a line array in.
No, of course they won't.
It ruins it. So then it becomes a challenge of, okay, so what kind of column solution can we put in that we can have hand painted to match the woodwork, and deal with all of the idiosyncrasies of working with time delays, and trying to fire down a very narrow sanctuary that has these massive marble pillars in the middle of it.
Matt, we're going to, sorry to interrupt, let's pick this up in a short while in the after show, if that's okay. Tempus fugit, as always the case, and we hate having to do this, just to have to stop the guest, but we're going to see you again very shortly. Please get your questions in to Matt. We're going to have a great time in the after show. Lots to talk about. Matt, thank you for now. And for you, here's a question. I love that guy.
Yeah, he knows a lot about this stuff too. Matt and I, we usually spend a lot of time just kind of, to be honest, screwing around with each other and having fun when we bump into each other at a trade show or we see each other at airports. That's where we always meet. But when it's actually time to talk tech, like, he really does know his stuff. That makes it even more fun.
He knows his onions. Bit of housekeeping before we go to the questions. What have we got to tell people? After show, get your questions into the after show, please. Stick around because Matt's going to be with us.
Let's
We're going to be talking to him.
Let's make sure they know how to get to the after show. All right, everybody, pay attention. Get your pads out. This is complicated. What you need to do is stay precisely where you are and don't touch anything for the next 3.5 minutes, and then you'll be in the after show. That's it.
That was easy.
It's very simple.
That was easy peasy.
Right there. Meanwhile, worth noting, if any of you are watching this after the show, you're not watching it live, but on demand on YouTube, the after show is available in the archive on the SDVoE Academy. So visit sdvoe.org/academy, and you can go catch the after show, after the show, after show.
Love that. Yeah, we've thrown some questions at you. We're going to need you. You've got some answers coming in. Good answers. Got a bunch of people in here now. Loads of people in the chat. About 14,100 people in the chat, Justin. So we've got a lot of work to do in the after show.
Good. Are answers still coming in? Should we?
No.
We'll talk answers in the after show.
We'll talk answers in the after show.
Let's let them keep trying. Yeah, good.
Indeed. Hashtag SDVoE Live. Send us your tweets. We've got tweets coming in. We'll show the tweets at the bottom of the screen here. Just send your tweets in. Give us your tweets. We're streaming live out on Twitter as well, but that's not the best place to be. The best place to be is here in Academy. Right, so where are we at? The next show. Interesting title, this. JK.
9. It's 1 p.m. It's 1 p.m. Do you know where your network is?
Do you?
Our guest will be Alicia Hendley, who is a network engineer. And she's going to talk to us about how do you troubleshoot a network.
Wow.
Right, this is a more and more critical question for AV professionals every day, as more and more of everything we do ends up on that IT network. So when something goes wrong, where do you start? Right, that's what we're going to hear from Alicia about, and we're going to learn some things in the SDVoE Academy about it as well.
Awesome. Well, in that case, let's go and pop our smoking jackets on, dear boy. Let's go and make ourselves comfortable in the after show part of this building. Yeah, you stick around. I'll see you in a minute. How's that?
Thanks
That was
for
good,
watching,
wasn't it?
everybody.
Enjoyed that. Yeah. Right. See you in a bit. Yeah.